that which is recording. Okay, I'll handle that which is recording. Share. So welcome. Today we are going to look at research designs. Um, I know most of you are doing quantitative study. I've not seen anyone with. I've not seen anyone who is doing a qualitative study yet. So we're using quantitative. So we are going to be talking about aspects of uh, how you come up with the research design and why do we have to choose certain research designs and these other what are the considerations that we need to put in mind. But again, we are also going to explore more of these designs and more uh, why they are suited for particular purposes and what could be the limitations. Why do we even have something called the research design? So by the end of this presentation, you will be able to basically understand that. So the world of research is a world that is littered with many words. Some of these ones can be used rightly, some of them can be used in the wrong ways. So actually, then different people have different ways they understand what research is. Just like the way we have different people believing in different ways about the world. The way we interpret the world, our interpretation of the world is not the same. So if we don't interpret the world in the same way, that means that we cannot do things in the same way. So your time of act, you spend it doing what you believe how life is supposed to be lived. And the other person may not really understand why you are doing things the way you do it. Just basically because you don't have the same lenses of looking at the world. You don't have the same lived experience about the world. The way the way we handle ourselves depends on our lived experiences to a very good extent. So you can have identical twins, but when they grow up in different environments, you realize that their belief system is not going to be the same. Their worldview is not going to be the same, and therefore everything about them may not be the same. It's the same thing with research. That we have people who see the world in different ways, and therefore, if they are going to conduct research about some phenomenon, they are going to use their own lenses and they're going to have the same way of tackling certain issues. So you have people who are pro-qualitative, you have people who are pro-quantitative, you have people who are pro different approaches to dealing with the research problem. And that's why we basically see a lot of ones here. And hopefully by the end of this presentation, you'll be able to know what they really mean. Okay, so we start with the research philosophy. Okay, research philosophy. The question, philosophy is about asking questions, by the way. Philosophy is about asking questions and how do we generate knowledge. So, for example, the question of what is knowledge and how do we generate is a philosophical question. Okay. Um, so when we talk about research philosophy, we are basically talking about the fact that research is about generating knowledge. But what is knowledge? Okay. And then people say that we can look at approaching questions of generating knowledge and the reality in two ways. That is positivism. Sometimes you see it in terms of what we call positivist. Okay, and then the other approach is interpretivism approach. What does this really mean? So everyone has their own understanding of what reality is, or everyone has their own construction of what amounts to knowledge, how to get it. So the people who believe in a positivist approach, they say that there is there is always one reality, or there is always a singular reality about the world, or about an object, about a situation, and that reality can be investigated using the scientific approach. Okay, so if we are saying that when when you take paracetamol, it will decrease your temperature if you have fever, and we can go and basically test the fact that actually uh, and know how this paracetamol causes a reduction in temperature. Okay, so you need to follow particular steps of investigating this problem, and that is the scientific method. Some time back I explained. Okay, so the scientific method has grounding in what we call the positivist approach in terms of what people consider reality, what reality is. So there is only one reality out there that can be tested and measured. That is the positivist approach. And then when we come to the interpretism, approach, it's about the fact that people have different realities about different situations, and you cannot have it the same way of going and investigating about these approaches. These realities are constructed through social interactions and people's individual interpretations of what the reality is. That is the interpretivist approach. Okay, so when when you lose a loved one, different people go through different grieving experiences. They can never be this people will never grieve the same way. So that is basically what they're saying, that the reality can the person's interpretation of the reality is constructed through social interaction. Who is this person? Who is this person? Please don't disorganize that.
Ahora, ahora.
I'm very certain that I'm just going to block this from the lecture. Let me find out who it is. Joseph.
This is Hore. Hore, maybe you can mute this.
No, I'm just going to block you.
Mahmoud Joseph.
Magura, if you're hearing, I'm blocking you from the lecture. Don't disorganize that about that. I don't see. I hope it doesn't come. Those are things that can be done by us yesterday, but we find out. So let's maintain that order such that we can have a good flow in lecture. Otherwise, you switch me off. Okay, so I was explaining what we call the socially constructed reality, that people will not have the same experiences about what the reality is, but those experiences are shaped by their social interaction and the way they actually interpret how the reality is. So you can realize from this that this takes the approach of qualitative research, which is about getting what other people experience. Okay, we want to get people's lived experiences. We want to get what people feel. Just a moment. Yeah, so the interpretivist approach lies more to qualitative, and then the positivist approach lies more to quantitative. Okay, so that's why we are saying that um, there are people who are pro the scientific approach, and that is basically the quantitative approach, and there are people who are pro the qualitative approach. But generally, the understanding should be that these approaches can both supplement one another. Okay, these approaches can both supplement one another, and that is why we have what we call mixed research methods, where someone is using qualitative approach and the quantitative approach at the same time. Okay, now like I started, the fact that the fact is that in research we have a lot of terminology. And this terminology should not confuse you as long as you understand what you're doing. If someone may ask you what research approach you're using, when you tell that person I'm using a qualitative or quantitative approach, you are actually right. Okay? But also we are seeing here that when you write about research approaches and you bring about concepts to do with inductive and deductive, you are also still right. Okay? So just know that some of these words can be used multiple times, but as long as you're grounded, you know what you're doing, you can use any of them. And that's how basically we look at research. There is no what we call one size fits all. Okay, there's no one size fits all. To say that if you are looking at this problem, this is how we should look at it. No, we don't have that. What we are basically saying is what we say that the cloth according to your size. The suit that you put on, if you go to the tailor, they have to make the measurements, your measurements, and then they make it. Okay? And then it will fit you. So the same thing with the research is that the nature of your research problem may be unique, and then you choose how to tackle it. So there is no what we call one size fits all. And therefore, when we talk about research approaches, uh, deductive and inductive, this also relates to what we look at in what we call argument or reasoning. We have what we call inductive reasoning and deductive reasoning. How do you make conclusions? Okay, how do you make conclusions? Do you first have to see something? Say, okay, this object or this organism, when it is done, it moves to the corner. That's an observation that you make. Okay, you have made an observation. So that observation, you will need to not make a conclusion based on that one observation. Can you test it? Can you get another animal of the same species, subject to the same conditions? Will it go to the corner? When it goes, you record. The second day, you record. You get another organism of the same species, subject to the same conditions. See, will it go to the corner? It goes. Then you can now make conclusions and say, when you bring ants, when you subject them to light, they will run to the corner where it is dark. So you come up with a theory that basically explains how that whole movement happens and why perhaps the ants move to the corner. So that is what we call the inductive approach. Okay, inductive approach. And still, this also points, the one is points towards quantitative approach. This is not to mean that qualitative approach cannot use inductive or deductive. Just like salads, with the salad you can mix, you can have any fruits and you can cut them and you put them there. It doesn't matter which fruit you cut first or which one comes next. No. And when you're eating salad, you are not going to say, let me first eat this, maybe in terms of sweetness and how it can change your taste. You can say, okay, let me start with this and then end with it. But definitely, usually, if you randomly pick any piece, it's okay. So it's the same approach here. That you can use inductive. You can make an observation and then go and collect that and make a theory or make a conclusion of principle, whatever you come up with, or you make a hypothesis, regardless of what you come up with. You can use a quantitative approach or you can use a qualitative approach. The deductive approach is that you start with a theory. You can either, based on a theory that has already been developed, and then you go and it guides you in the research process. Okay, and then you come up with conclusion, and this conclusion will be in relation to the theory. So that is the deductive approach. You start with a theory. So basically, we usually use the word is that the one that the research is grounded in this theory. Okay, this is basically to say that the research process is going to be based on a particular theory that you that maybe you want to prove or you want to disapprove, regardless of whether you which objective you want. Okay, so deductive, you start with a theory and test it. So you start with a theory and collect data. Inductive, you start with observation and collect data. They prove and say, okay, this is what concluded. So when we talk about strategies, um, these are also many words that are also mixed in there. And therefore, if someone has what we call, for example, they say the research design is this is a cross section of survey. Okay, that person is actually correct. But here we are saying a survey, for example, is a strategy. Don't be confused. Just a salad, but you need to know how to eat the salad. Some is a cloth. If you are making a coat, you buy that is a suit. You buy the same cloth, isn't it? Now, after buying the same cloth, that cloth is cut into pieces to make the different parts of the suit. But you can have the part of that cloth that is not tailored very well and put on any part of that suit. That suit will not be a good suit if it is not tailored according to the fashion that is actually universally accepted. So you can have the right cloth, but that piece of cloth has not been put in the right place. For example, the pockets on the side. If they have not been put in the appropriate place, the suit will not look nice even if it's the same cloth. It's the same thing here. But you should really be familiar with this terminology, such that you can be able to use them appropriately. Although we have a many of them that can be used interchangeably. So when we talk about research approaches and research strategies, we are basically saying these are specific methods of conducting research, within a chosen approach. So you can design an experiment, or you may not need to design an experiment. You can just start a survey, you can do a case study, you can do a grounded theory, it can be ethnography, it can be action. With an experiment, as we shall see, you manipulate. The keyword is manipulation. Let me get a pen here. Hope to know this coming. Pen. I needed to have downloaded it, so I will not be able to use the pen here. Yeah. So experiment, there is manipulation of at least one variable or two variables to see what will happen. So what will happen is the effect, and then the manipulated variable is the one which will cause the effect. So it's about cause effect relationship. Surveys, you want to know how many people know about this stuff. How many people have ever bought a product from this store? The survey. You want to know how many people know about the vaccine. How many people have ever taken a vaccine? That's a survey. A case study is when you have this particular condition, case. A case in this case is the person who has a particular condition, and you properly document it, okay, in the description of a particular case. Okay, that's a case study. You will see that we have what we call case report, case series, wherever they are. It relates to how many individual cases are you with. That's the difference. Grounded theory. With grounded theory, you develop a theory from the data that you have collected. Okay, so it also still relates back to what we had discussed earlier on. Okay, after collecting the data, you can now develop a theory. Ethnography, the grounded theory and ethnography, these are actually mostly used in qualitative approach. Okay, so ethnography is when the researcher goes and stays with the people at if you actually investigating, that you stays with them and understand their ways of life. So we call that immersed. The researcher becomes immersed into. So if you're going to look at how, for example, um, the adulthood initiation, how are children initiated into adulthood in a particular tribe? Then you go and stay with those people and see how the thing happens. That is ethnography. Okay? Actual research is when you're carrying out research, basically get solutions to practical problems. For example, you want to understand, you want to improve the operation of an organization. So you go and interview different people such that you can be able to create policies, make changes within the organization such that the organization becomes more profitable, more efficient. That's what we call action research. Okay, so action research, you this action research can be qualitative or can be quantitative. But basically, just know that you're going to investigate about a particular situation such that you come up with practical solutions to improve the situation. That's what we call action research. So this presentation is about research design, and we are on slide, I think, number 5 or number 6. That's when we are now introducing the term research design. Research design is like a map. You look at it like a map that will take you to where you want to go. Without it, you can get lost. So therefore, we can say that the research design is a blueprint. A blueprint is usually one that is very common in construction. You cannot build a house without a plan, architecture plan. The architecture plan tells you where the wall will pass, the wall for the different rooms, where the wall for the fence will pass. Okay, so it's the same thing with the research design. It's the blueprint for conducting a plan. It gives you the framework and the plan for how you do your thing. So if you choose a qualitative research approach, their expectations for the rest of your work. If you choose a quantitative research approach, their expectations for the rest of your work. Usually, you see the research topic at once, and you know that this research topic is for quantitative or this research topic is for qualitative. Okay, so that means that from the topic, you should be able to deduce the type of research design that one is going to use. So the research design, therefore, influences the methodology. The research design influences the methodology. So it answers a lot of your questions, just like what we have said with the map. With the map, you'll be able to know where will I find the roadblock, where will I find the hill, where will I find the mountain, where will I find the river, and what should I be doing when I find this aspect. So you start to plan. You say, when I reach where there is a river, I will put on my gumboots and then maybe find a canoe or something. Where I find a mountainous area, this is what I will do. So that's what the research design helps you with. It helps you in answering all these questions that you will have about your work. Okay, even the framing of your objective, the framing of your research questions, the framing of the different aspects of the research methodology, how you frame the sampling, how you frame the research data, the data collection procedures, how you frame issues to do with validity, reliability will be influenced by the research design. Okay, and this should be very clear to you when you look at quantitative and the qualitative approach of doing research. And maybe let me communicate now that tomorrow at 9, we are going to have a presentation on quantitative research approach or quantitative research design. Okay? And then on Monday we shall have qualitative research design. Okay, so the research design helps you to answer every question that you will have about your research going forward. Okay, it's basically like I think let me find a way of being able to run. So let me just download this back. After downloading, then I will be able to run. But there's something coming into my mind that I need you to explain further. So we are on slide 7. I'm going to have a long day here. With the slides are 14. Are we still on the same page? As between the okay.
Yes.
Okay. Great.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So with the PowerPoint open, and then I can be able to write. I'll have a freedom. Here. Get my pen. Good. So slide number 7, where are you? Okay. So what we are basically saying is that the research design gives you a blueprint of how the research will turn out and helps you to answer different questions that will come along the way. Okay, and we are saying that you cannot mix different ingredients. For example, you cannot eat rice that has a lot of stone. You cannot eat it. It becomes something that you cannot really eat. So if you look at research in that way, that if you don't lay your things properly, which are these blocks here, if you don't put the right blocks, um, if you don't lay them in an organized way, they will fall. So the same thing with the research design, that if you don't completely understand what you're doing, even if you have the map, you will not be able to go where you are. So you have, it's like having the wrong map. If you have the wrong map, you cannot reach your destination. Never. Never. Okay? So if you have the wrong design, you cannot have coherent research. You cannot have coherent research. So how do you come up with the research design? How do you make that decision? That decision comes from the nature of the research problem that you have, and then after the nature of the research problem and how do you frame that research problem. So you can have a research problem that can go by numbers, that is quantitative, and then you can also have a research problem that can go with lived experiences. But the key difference comes from how you frame, which is about problem formulation. How you package that problem, how you package it will be giving us what we call pointers to which research design you will be having. And then when you conduct literature review about the problem, you'll be able to know that this problem has been investigated using this approach. So is there a need for me to use that same approach? or there is need for me to look at this problem with a different approach. Okay, so that is where you say, let me use a qualitative approach, where you have a justification. The problem of malnutrition has been investigated using quantitative approaches. This leaves out the fact that some of the causes of malnutrition can be linked to people's experiences in their social life. And therefore, a study using qualitative approach to investigate if this is warranted. Okay? So after doing the literature review, you have a very good understanding of how the problem has been tackled, and therefore you can decide on the research questions, the research hypotheses, and how you go on with the other steps of deciding the research participants, deciding the methods of sampling, the data collection tools that you use, data collection tools, and even ethical considerations. A good research design should be one that you can actually, first, it should make sense. It should make sense. I don't know how to put this. Um, what I'm basically saying is that you should choose a research design that fits the situation and that you can adjust it to how you want the research to go on. Okay, that's point number one. It's just like I will still use the analogy of the suit. The suit should fit you well in every part. It should not only fit you well up here and then down here it becomes very small for you. No, that will not be a very good suit. A good suit is one which will make you feel relaxed and be able to enjoy putting it on, and you don't feel like it is some tight cloth that is actually squeezing you up and making you suffocate. So that's what the research design should fit the problem naturally. Okay? If it does not fit the problem naturally, there are a lot of questions that we really need to answer. Okay? So if people ask you, hey, you're investigating this and you're using this, they see a what we call a misfit. Until maybe if you have a very logical explanation for why you're using that approach. So it should fit the problem that you're investigating. It should allow you to achieve what you want to achieve with minimal resources. And then efficiency in terms of cost and reliability is also another concept of research that when you conduct a study and I go back and conduct the same study using the same tools and the same measurements, I should get results that are similar to yours, which we call consistent. If you use a research design that does not produce consistent results, then you have not addressed your research problem with the appropriate problem. Okay, so look at the research problem as an object that needs to be closed, or just look at it as an individual who needs to be closed. You don't need to have a person who has tight clothes. You don't need a person who has what we call oversized clothing. You need clothing that can fit. And the reason as to why I have this person here who's running, if you don't have the right shoes, you cannot run. If you have not put on light clothing, shorts, and maybe a vest or a short-sleeved shirt, you can't run. So just look at the research problem in that way. If you don't close it well, you will not reach your destination. In doing research, what we do is that we make observations. So these observations that we make, we need to describe these observations. And the description of these observations can be in terms of text or in terms of numbers. Text or in terms of numbers. And by this moment, you should be knowing that when we talk about numbers, it is quantitative. And when we talk about text, it's qualitative. Okay? So in qualitative research, you will not really talk about numbers. You will not talk a lot about what we call variables. It's not something that they are really very interested in. In a qualitative research, the interest is about people's experiences, their perception, attitude. Those are the things that people are interested in. You can't interpret attitude in terms of a numerical scale, in terms of it's not very common, though we have some scales that, for example, the Likert scale, if I can write it here, the Likert scale. But even in your description of the Likert scale, if you use it, it's not more intended to use in numericals to explain what people felt. No, not really. Okay? So these variables are common in quantitative research. The word variable can be replaced by the word data. The word variable can be replaced by the word data. So you can hear about what we call continuous data, discrete data, something like that. So basically what I've just said is that we make observations. And then those observations that we make, we can measure them and come up with numbers. Or we can just describe the observations that we make. And that's why qualitative data is what we call rich data. Because for us, I'm using for us, because I'm the person who leans more to quantitative. For people who use quantitative lenses a lot, you see a child who has been brought the to the nutrition center. What we are interested in, quantitative people, is the work, the grading of the edema, the other vital signs. Those are numbers. That's what we are interested in. Okay? So out of the numbers that we collect, they can fall into any of these categories. Continuous, variable, discrete, variable, dependent variable, independent variable, what we call compounding variable, or you can call it extraneous variable. So let me explain what it means. Continuous variable, you're saying that it can take any value. Everyone has different height. You will find someone who is 2.5 meters, you can find someone of 1.1, you can find someone who is 2.1. That's a continuous variable because it can take any value. Discrete variable is particular values. You can't say that I have 1.2 computers. No, it has to be one computer or two computers or three computers. So you can't say I have 1.8 children. No, you can't say I have two children or one child. So that is a discrete variable. It's a discrete number. And then we come to dependent variable and independent variable. We often use the word parameters. But when you're carrying out an experiment, there are things that you measure. We can call them parameters. So we have one parameter that influences the other. Okay, so for example, if you are interested in knowing how a particular drug influences, let us say, temperature. So which one is independent and which one is dependent. So you have the drag, this is the x, this is the y axis. Okay, so let's use this slide here. Let's use this slide here. This is the y-axis, this is the x-axis. And we have another illustration here, dependent variable, independent variable. Dependent variable is that thing that will change because you have changed the independent variable. So if you have the drag here, the dose of the drag will affect the temperature here. So the temperature becomes dependent and then this one becomes independent. That's the explanation for independent and dependent variables. Okay, so if you are looking at factors associated with, let us say, acute malnutrition, you have the status of malnutrition being the one that is going to be changed by the different variables, socioeconomic status, and things like that. Okay, and then the extraneous variable, which I call the confounding variable. Here, the word confounding variable, ing, is when you talk about a factor that interferes with the relationship under which you are investigating. So, for example, here we are saying that we are investigating the drug. The drug is drug Z and how it influences temperature. But you have not considered that this patient is taking another drug Y, another drug D, another drug D. So for you, as you're taking these measurements, you're thinking, yes, my drug Z is the one reducing the temperature. Yet the patient is taking another drug D. So this D is what we call the confounding variable, or what we call the extraneous variable. It affects the relationship between the variables that you're investigating. So you need to rule them out. So if a patient is taking drug D, you should make sure that the drug D actually does not influence the temperature. But if it influences the temperature, then you're not very sure whether the reduction in temperature is because of drug Z or drug D. Research hypothesis, excuse me, you make what you call an educated decision or an educated guess. You say that drug D reduces temperature. Drug D reduces temperature. That is a statement. That statement is giving you what you call a direction. Is that a hand or someone has just joined?
Yes, this means Dennis. On my side, the slides are not moving.
What about other people?
Okay.
Yeah, I'm still seeing core elements of research design.
Okay.
The same to me as well.
Okay. Let me repeat the screen share. Let me repeat the screen share. Screen share. Okay. Screen share. So, okay. When I moved it to the PowerPoint, I did not share the PowerPoint. Okay. Please share. Please share. Okay. Okay. Sharing. Hey. This lecture may take 2 hours. Are you seeing the slides?
No, I'm not seeing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's visible on my side.
I can.
This side I press it.
Okay. Okay. Let me also confirm on my side whether I keep the next one should be PowerPoint. I mean, should be slideshow. Like it's taking forever. Okay. Yes, but it's on the wrong. So let me use this. No, I should not use this. So let me stop the sharing again. But that I get to the appropriate thing. Any questions as I sort this out? I can be taking any questions here. Go to slideshow. Okay. Confirm that you can see the only one slide. Research hypothesis.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. And you can see that I'm drawing a line, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Yes. So we are saying that a research hypothesis is the statement that predicts the relationship between variables. And I've used the example of you're saying that a drug D reduces temperature when it is administered intravenously. Okay, so you have made a prediction. Okay, so that prediction can be right or wrong. Okay, so you go and carry out the research, you go and carry out the data collection, and then you run calculations to prove whether it is correct or not. Someone, please mute, please. I don't know who that is. Make sure you mute. Huh? Okay, so an example of a research hypothesis in a public health can be implementing a community-wide vaccination campaign for influenza will significantly reduce the incidence of flu-related hospitalizations during winter season compared to a region without such a program. Okay, that is an example of a research hypothesis in public health. So for us, when you're doing your research, do you need a research hypothesis? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. It is not really mandatory that you have a research hypothesis at your level. I mean, especially that when you're doing observational studies, usually not really. Okay. So broadly, we have two types of research designs: observational studies and what we call experimental studies. I don't know why we have one here, but this one is that. This one should be two. Experimental studies should be two. Experimental studies can be called interventional studies. Observational studies can be called non-experimental studies. The key thing is about manipulation. Experimental studies, you manipulate one or two variables and see what happens. Manipulation is about changing the variable. Okay, is it changing the dose of the drug? Is it giving the participants a drug or not giving them a drug? That is what we call manipulation. Okay, so with observational studies, there are no manipulations, and then in interventional studies, or what we call experimental studies, we have what we call manipulation of the variable. Okay, so we manipulate the variable and see what will happen. Now, observational studies can be quantitative or qualitative. Okay, I hope I'm not confusing you anymore. Observational studies are basically concerned about uh, describing, usually descriptive, describing a particular situation. That for those doing health programs, it's about describing a health issue or a health problem. So we have descriptive studies. You're not interested in knowing the cause of the issue. Okay, you're interested in saying that in a population X, we have 10 people, 10 people with this disease. Okay, and they have the following risk factors. Okay, that's what you're doing. So when you do that, this, for example, is what we call a cross-sectional study. Okay, you're describing, I don't know why this thing keeps moving. You're describing a health problem in a particular population, the extent of that problem, usually prevalence. So we can call cross-sectional studies prevalence studies. They are basically descriptive studies. And then we have case studies, which I explained earlier on. You look at one case and describe it in detail. For case series, you have individuals of the same characteristic who have the same lived experience, who have the same disease, for example, and then describe their experiences. But those are case series. Okay? So I hope that is very clear. Descriptive studies and observational studies. Observational studies, no intervention. You don't intervene, you don't change anything. So we divide them into two. Those that are interested in knowing what is the issue. Those are the ones we call descriptive, knowing what is the issue. And then we have those that are interested in knowing what is causing the issue. What is causing the issue? So what is causing the issue are here. You don't intervene, but still you want to know what is bringing the problem. That is analytical. So you link variables that you're saying that is the B happening because of A, or is A happening because of B? You want the answers. If you do a research study with those two questions, those studies fall under what we call descriptive studies. Analytical studies. In descriptive, here, we are saying, how does it look like? How does it look like? What is the situation? Here, you're asking, what is the situation and what brings the situation? Is it A or B? So you want to know, is it smoking that is causing the cancer, or what is the situation? So under analytical studies, you have what you call case control and then what you call cohort studies. These are very simple concepts. You're saying that with case control, you're saying that, okay, you have a disease F. Okay, you have it. And then you have other people who do not have the disease F. This is negative. They have no disease. So you want to say, those of you who have the disease, what do you have that is making you have the disease and these people not have the disease? That is what we call the problem with this pain is shifting, like it's running to where? That's what you call a case control. So you have individuals